Hey everybody, it is Dak here from TheEdB0ys, and welcome to my Nightmare Zone guide. The Nightmare Zone is a mini game where you can fight quest bosses that you've already killed, and it makes for some of the best melee XP rates in the game. On that note, I will be heavily focusing on melee over range because there are better range methods out there, but I'll discuss a little bit what to wear if you're trying to range in here instead. In this guide, I'll be starting with requirements for Nightmare Zone, then what gear you should plan on bringing with you. After that, we'll briefly talk about how to get to the Nightmare Zone, and then what you actually have to do to fight in the zone for either getting a lot of XP, or I will discuss getting points per hour too, but this is a little bit more about the XP rates. Finally, we'll discuss what you can do with Nightmare Zone points once you've got them. The Nightmare Zone runs off of quest bosses, so to start you need to do at least 5 quests done that have a boss you can kill in the Nightmare Zone. There's tons of quests out there to do. In fact, I left a link to the TheEdB0ys Nightmare Zone page containing a full list of quests you could do. Some of the easiest quests you could do to start include the Grand Tree, the Fight Arena, the Lost City, the Vampire Slayer, and what lies below. That'll unlock the Black Demon, Bouncer, Spirit Tree, King Roald, and Count Draenor the Vampire for the Nightmare Zone, which is a pretty good starting point. The more quests you do, the more bosses you can use, which is big, especially if you're trying to get a lot of points per hour. This guide's mostly based off of using Darok's armor for some solid damage, so I would suggest having at least 70 plus in your melees to wear that gear. Though if you don't have Darok's for whatever reason, we'll discuss that in the gear section. To make Darok's worth it, you're going to have either a Rock Cake or the Locator Orb from Dragon Slayer 2, which is slightly better to use. If you don't use Darok's, then using the Rock Cake to get to 1 health is still pretty important, and we'll talk about that a little more later. If you own Dragon Claws or even a Granite Maul or just some good weapon with a DPS special attack, you could get some extra XP in here, though it's not necessarily needed, it's just a good boost. Let's briefly talk about the gear setup, which is very straightforward. Here's what I bring to go along with my Darok's gear. The idea is just to do as much damage as you can, so you're trying to bring your highest level melee gear in there, even if you've got a downgrade to like Dragon Boots, an Amulet of Fury, or even a Glory. And maybe you don't have your Barrow's Gloves yet, which is kind of weird because this is all about getting a bunch of quests done to do the Nightmare Zone too. You could bring a Combat Bracelet. For the range gear, if you're trying to AFK some range XP in here, I don't really suggest it overall for range XP because there's better methods like I said before, but the idea is still the same. You're trying to do as much damage as you can, so a blowpipe with max range gear and void would plow through some monsters, though be fairly expensive on scales. Even a Carol's Crossbow with some good range gear overall will provide you with some AFK range XP and a handful of Nightmare Zone points. The Nightmare Zone is located just north of Yanil. It has its own minigame teleport in your minigame tab, which is obviously the easiest way to get there. If you've never been there before, though, there is a fairy ring close by, or you could even make your way from Artie and just run south. If you've gotten to the point that you've done all these quests to have Nightmare Zone and you can't figure out how to get there with this information, I'm not 100% sure how to help you. Let's talk about entering the Nightmare Zone and setting up your game, basically. There's 3 different modes that you can use: Practice, Endurance, and Rumble. We'll be using Rumble in this video. This is the mode that lets you customize which bosses to fight, and it'll send 4 monsters in at a time, and it won't end until you either leave or you get killed. Keep in mind, this is a safe minigame. If you die on a hardcore Iron Man, you won't lose your status. You can either choose hard or normal mode. Generally, hard mode is better since you get more points from each boss, and all of their stats are raised except for their defense level, so you should still do the same damage as you would in normal mode. Hard mode costs a few more coins to get in, but it only goes from 22k per trip to 26k per trip. It's not that big of a deal. To pay the man your money, you just need to put some money in the coffers. Before you go in, there are some potions that are only available to use in the Nightmare Zone, or I guess technically raids. You can make overloads, but you can purchase doses of these potions for Nightmare Zone points in the rewards chest. Obviously, if this is your very first trip, you don't have any points yet, but you could just bring like 2 or 3 prayer potions and protect melee, as long as you make sure that you're using melee bosses, which the 5 bosses I listed earlier are all melee bosses. So you can get a handful of points in there, use a couple of prayer potions, and then kind of get started with some of these ones. 2 potions that you need are Overloads and Absorptions. Overloads, if you don't know, they're like super potions for all 5 of your combats, including attack, strength, defense, magic, and range. They boost your stats to a little more than a super combat or like a ranging potion would, plus it sort of reboosts every 15 seconds, meaning you don't slowly drop back down to your normal levels. Instead, at the end of 5 minutes, you just return back to normal. You do have to have more than 50 health to drink an overload potion, since when you drink it, you take 5 10s in a row. You do get those 50 hit points back when you're done. You just got to make sure that you have over 50 hit points or it won't let you drink the potion. Keep in mind, if you're using a rock cake and you were to sip your potion at 51 hit points, and then while the potion was hitting you, eat the rock cake and lose that 1 extra hit point, the overload will kill you. The other potion is an absorption potion. Each sip gives you 50 absorption points. You can stack up to 1,000 at a time. Any damage you take will affect your absorption points instead of your hit points, kind of like a shield. The thing is, the damage your absorption points take is still based off your health. So if you have 1 health left, then you only take 1 absorption damage on each hit. That's why it's important to keep your health low, even if you're not wearing TheEdB0ys. In terms of the ratio of how many potions you should bring, I usually try to bring 7 or 8 overloads, and the rest is absorption potions. Obviously, I have my rock cake and my dragon claws in there too. The more AFK you plan to be, the less overloads you should bring. If you plan on focusing and making sure that you're always at 1 HP, then you could probably even get up to 10 overloads, depending on your defense level too. When you're on hard mode as opposed to normal mode, you will take more damage. Even if it's consistently 1s, you'll take more 1s to your absorption potions, and you'll run out of them a little faster. Once you've asked Dominic Onion to set up your trip and you have all your potions ready, you can click on the vial to set up which bosses you want to fight. I'm going to start with my setup for XP per hour, which is normally the reason I'm in Nightmare Zone. Up to this point, I've spent enough time just trying to AFK my melee XP that when I went to imbue stuff, I happen to have enough points generally, or very close, just because I was in here trying to get my stats up. I will get to the actual points side of things though. This is not necessarily a points guide. I will give you an idea of how you can get a lot more points per hour. You have to have a minimum of 5 bosses to start the Nightmare Zone. For XP, you kind of want to go for that minimum of 5 so you can make sure to get the ones you want to fight as often as possible. The 5 that I like to go for are Count Draenor, King Roald, the Moss Giant, Ice Troll King, and the Khazard Warlord. The Bouncer's not a bad option either, but overall, you're really looking for monsters with low defense that you can do a lot of damage to. The special part of the Moss Giant and the Ice Troll King, for some reason, they give you a little bit of bonus XP while you fight them. There are 4 bosses that give that bonus XP. Arg and Dad will also do it, but they're kind of more annoying to fight, so in my opinion, it's not worth putting them in there. It's not a lot of bonus XP. The Moss Giant is 7.5% extra, and the Ice Troll King is 12.5% extra. It overall will do a little bit better on your XP rates, though. You can rock cake outside of the arena if you want, but you have plenty of time once you start the rumble to do it inside. Make sure that you sip an absorption potion early, at least once, just in case you're slow and you accidentally start getting attacked while you're working on all the other sips. Drop your health down to 51 and then sip 1 overload dose, which will get you down to 1 health. For those who don't know, TheEdB0ys does more damage if you have lower health. I believe you have a higher strength bonus is the idea. So trying to be at 1 health for TheEdB0ys armor will get you the most damage out of it. After that, you can just get up to 1,000 absorption points. Make sure your auto retaliate is on and just have at it. I usually have my quick prayers on rapid heal so I can flick it to stop regenerating health. Basically, when you turn on or off the rapid heal prayer, it restarts your 1-minute regen timer. This isn't a huge deal. I mostly don't get it on every minute, but anytime that I'm using my rock cake to get back down to 1 HP, I usually make sure to flick my prayer quick, kind of reset the extra maybe 30 or 45 seconds that have gone by. There are a few power-ups that are going to appear while you're in here. The Zapper will attack some monsters while it's activated, which is nice to kill monsters faster, but shouldn't be used in this fast XP method because you don't get any XP from the damage that the Zapper does. Ultimate Power kills every monster in the room when activated, which is not that helpful for either getting XP or getting points since you don't get any points from those kills specifically, but there's one situation that is kind of nice, which we'll talk about in the points section. Recurrent damage will add an extra hit anytime you do damage. I believe it's 75%, so if you hit a 20, it'll also hit a 15 right afterwards. It doesn't give any extra XP, so I would not use it while gaining XP, but you get points for killing the monsters, so if you need more points, recurrent damage is nice. Power Surge is the power-up that you're looking for. If you brought a spec weapon in with you, Power Surge continuously refills your spec bar for 45 seconds, so you can really do a lot of damage with Dragon Claws, and even the Granite Maul is a nice boost in DPS. Other than that, there really isn't much to this. You're just trying to do as much damage as possible. It is pretty AFK, even if you just sit here and all you're trying to do is make sure you stay at low health whenever you notice your health has gone up. Every 5 minutes you're going to have to sip an overload dose, but I'll even admit sometimes I'm kind of late on that because I AFK too much. And just keep your absorption points as high as possible so that you don't get knocked out early. The best XP per hour that I've gotten so far is around 130k an hour. The thing is, a lot of you are probably here to train your melee stats, so clearly if you're just at the 70 attack and strength rate, you're not going to get those rates. You're going to get closer to like 60k an hour at first, and some of that depends on your gear too. So between 60 and 100k an hour while you're training, and eventually if you get kind of good at it, you can get over 100k an hour overall. For how AFK it is, probably the best way to get your melee stats up in the game, other than maybe just training your Slayer. If you're here just for the Nightmare Zone points, you want to have a lot of bosses in there since it scales the amount of points that you get from each kill. Certain bosses are kind of a pain in the ass since they can either knock you back or poison you through absorption or even lower your stats, which isn't as big of a deal if you're using overloads. Here is a look at my boss list when I go in for trying to get points. If you're wondering what quests you have to do, again, I have left a link in the description to the TheEdB0ys Nightmare Zone page, which has a great list on the bosses and what quests to do, and even some pros and cons from them. It's important to either use the Recipe for Disaster or the Desert Treasure bosses, as these increase your overall points by a lot, though you can't just pick the ones that you want out of it. If you want one boss from either of those quests, you get all of them. I choose to bring the Desert Treasure bosses, but not the Recipe for Disaster. The thing is, you gotta make sure you're paying attention to two of the bosses. For Reed, you have to have ice gloves to fight him, or you have to use water spells. So you do want to bring in ice gloves if you're using Desert Treasure bosses, so that you can actually kill Fareed. And also you have Damus, another Desert Treasure boss. He has multiple phases, and in the second one he drains your prayer points, which kind of sucks. For this reason, you're trying not to actually kill Damus with your weapon if you can. Just wait until Ultimate Force shows up, and you can kill him with that. Potentially you can do this with Fareed if you didn't bring ice gloves too. You just don't get any XP from Ultimate Force, and you leave yourself a little more vulnerable to, like, the only 4 monsters in there are a couple of Fareeds and a couple of Damuses, and you don't have Ultimate Force to use, so you're gonna have to fight one of them. Overall, it's not nearly as AFK to get your better points per hour, but I'm usually fairly AFK while I do it and still get about 1,000,000 points per hour. I believe I've seen the max rate is about 1.5 million an hour, though. Let's go ahead and take a look at the other things that you can buy with your Nightmare Zone points other than just the potions. There are a handful of good supplies in here that you can get. Unfortunately, of this resource tab, if you are an Iron Man, the only thing you can buy is scrolls of redirection. These are really nice though. You can use them on a house teleport to redirect it to many different places. Usually the POH portals are the more popular options, but also like a Trollheim teleport for God Wars Dungeon is really nice too. And the next best option is usually your herb boxes. You can only buy 15 of these a day, so you can't just spend all of your Nightmare Zone points on herb boxes, but overall, if you make sure you buy your boxes every day, you will get a little bit of money back from this. Generally profit, but you're spending a little bit of money on repairing your Darox and in your coffers and whatnot, so it's really not that big of a deal, but it makes the money back for sure. In terms of this upgrades tab, this is where you would bring like a Berserker ring, a Warrior's ring, any item that can be imbued here. A lot of them cost a lot of points, but imbuing your rings does double the stats on them. In fact, for some rings, it's even a better benefit than that. So very highly suggested to imbue your rings when you're going to use them, and this is the place to do it. Other than that, there aren't really that many benefits in terms of points to the Nightmare Zone. For me, it really is about getting some solid melee XP. I believe that is going to do it for this Nightmare Zone guide. If you still have any questions or you felt there was something I missed that you would like some information on, please just let me know in the comments section below. I will do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. Other than that, thank you very much for watching the guide. I hope you got some good information out of it, and best of luck on your Nightmare Zone grind.